the way it works is you go through arraignment, the judge will set a bail, and then if the defender says it feels that's too high and the person can't make it, they ask for a full-on bail hearing, and that gives us about a week to kind of prep and kind of pack that hearing and tell the story of why this person will be coming back to court and why the judge should feel confident that they're not a public safety threat, or whatever language they use or excuse they use to keep someone locked up. And so the packets, they kind of look like old school high school projects, like a binder with a photo on it and a table of contents and that sort of thing. But they've been really effective. And they've been effective in the sense of like literally stopping life cases, where you're at a sentencing and there's a lot of discretion by the judge, and the judge is going to go to some indicated sentence that they've just always done, and then all of a sudden they look up and there's all these people in the court and they have this packet they've had to review. Imani told this incredible story yesterday of it stopping an actual hearing. Yeah.
So Dennis was our first case. He came to us. He already was convicted, so it was for sentencing. In Knoxville, they like to use this unconstitutional thing called gang enhancement, and they just like to throw it on any person of color. We knew that Dennis was not a gang member, so we partnered with different organizations, Black Lives Matter, other community activists, and started a petition saying that we know the community knows he's not a gang member. We started doing a social bio packet, getting letters from people. He had mental health issues as well. So we also contacted Helen Ross McNabb, which is a mental health facility, to try to get him placement, to say, instead of putting him in prison, let's put him in treatment, because that putting him in prison will not do anything. We got that okayed, the plan from Helen Ross McNabb. Then we also provided insurance information in that packet to show how he was going to pay for it. The lawyer, he had a private lawyer at the time, was really reluctant to the information and the mother being involved. So we couldn't get that packet to him before the sentencing. We had to go to his office and kind of make him take the packet and say, please present this at the hearing. We go to the hearing, we packed the courtroom out. There's just people all from the community. The lawyer, like I said, was not in favor of that. So he goes to the judge, he's like, oh, I have this, they want me to give you. The judge starts looking through it, and he's like, I cannot do a sentencing right now. I have to consider this information. So we were actually able, as a community, to stop him from going to prison that day. Eventually, he was accepted into the mental health program, so he did not go to prison. And that's the power of community in the courtroom that can back you all up. For Dennis, since he was, we wanted to advocate for mental health. We put his medical history, his medical records, the plan that Helen Ross McNabb wanted to do with him. Also, all the character letters saying that we know he's not a gang member. He's just, he just wanders around the community. Other organizations that would provide him support, with him being in Helen Ross McNabb. And really, it was more the medical stuff for him, so we could advocate for the mental health facility instead of prison. But it depends on different scenarios.
I just wanted to add and be mindful that we're just not doing this on our own. We're doing this based on the strategy from the attorney. So it's not like, what we think. So we have to confer with the attorney to say, which direction are you going to go, and here's what we can do.
I'm curious if your program requires the accused to have a family that is active and participatory.
Right.
Can you provide benefits to people who do not have an active and participatory family?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and when I say family, I mean it kind of loosely. So whoever's coming to me might be someone they care about is facing charges. Yeah. So, but for situations where they don't have anyone, what happens is the hub kind of becomes their family. So we sort of end up playing that role. So it could either be through the defender. It could be from the public defender says, hey, I have this client, and is there a way that we could get some community support? And how that could play out is a number of ways. It could be literally, I have a hearing next Wednesday. Can debug folks come so that the judge knows that this person's not alone? But there's also more kind of nuanced things that may be situational or based on like the local court process. Like I was talking to Alex before we came out here. So for these bail hearings, right? That's maybe one example. Like we get a lot of situations where maybe someone is transient or there isn't stable living, and so the judge feels, okay, well, I feel less secure that they'll come back to court, so I'm going to keep this unreachable bail. And normally, ideally, what we'd want to say is, oh, this person can stay at Uncle's house or something. Then we just make that argument and show pictures of Uncle's house and his room. But in those situations, what we've done is we just created, it's kind of what Imani did in that sentencing, is we think through what are the community resources that could be helpful. And so in those situations, we have something that we call the Community Release Project, sort of our third lane of release that we're trying to promote, which is instead of money bail or detention, why not just say someone be connected to the community, and that's enough that should give you the judge confidence to release them. And so in that situation, if we have time, then the Community Release Project person from Debug, from the Participatory Defense model, is trying to find housing options for that person or programmatic support. So that way, at the hearing, we're there, and public defender says, and Your Honor, they got accepted into this church that has a housing program, and then we're there to say, yeah, we'll meet so-and-so at the jail and bring them over. So that's sort of the way it's played out, at least in San Jose. You guys have?
When the people that we get that don't have family are people, we're supporting a family of a loved one that's locked up, and that loved one that's locked up tells someone else, and so they'll send us a letter, and then we'll just support them from there.
And I guess for us, the support of our public defender's office, they actually put in every letter that they mail, they put a little envelope stuffer, so it's English and Spanish about our meeting. Also, when the TVs work in the visiting room at the jail, they had posted it on there too. So you can see it that way. So at least if the family doesn't see it on the outside, the loved one or maybe somebody coming to visit them can say, hey, this is, yes. Yeah. On the visiting side. So that way, if somebody's in the visiting room going in, it's when the TV works, you know what I mean? They'll see it. But then also, like I said, the public defenders put it in everything that they mail, but Spanish and English.
I have to say thank you so much because I met with you guys in St. Louis a couple of years ago. You guys were there. I had a customer face that you guys not only gave me some suggestions for how to edit the video, but also how to incorporate the videos when people are going to come out. Applying people that all like interested in taking this them prosecuted how to with attorneys strike after their nerves or with
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's what's wild is like that possibility is there all the time. It's just we don't acknowledge it. Like community rarely acknowledges, oh, I could partner with the attorneys, or and sometimes attorneys aren't seeing the resource that community could do. Then when the kind of sort of the collaboration could produce these things that otherwise just would not be as possible to achieve. And we're gonna show you like a video and stuff like that too, which is another like I think is sort of the future of mitigation in a lot of ways. Just one thing too around this question around what we put in the packets, like so and these are, I think one was for Gene's brother was in negotiation with the prosecutor, and then the other one was, I think, was actually for a bail hearing, and then we'll use it again if required with negotiation with the prosecutor or at sentencing. Alan's social bio, he was no bail, and I don't know if that's even a term used here, but is it? Oh, okay, all right. So he was no bail, and so like in California, it's supposed to be like for the ones that you can't even put $2 million on, because that's not going to, why they even thought money would equate to, anyways. So he was no bail at arraignment, and so he was denied his right to bail, and we did the packet, and we did it with the public defender, and at the bail hearing, he got released with no money, non-monetarily. He's coming to meetings now with his mom. And it's that range that is possible. It's just because the family had all this information that would be the real fuel to winning that bail hearing. They didn't know they were sitting on it, and the attorney didn't know they had it. And so finding some sort of like bridge for that to happen is what allowed that to occur. And you know, the other thing is I know we talked about this yesterday, Leslie. Like sometimes families and communities have been showing up at court, and then they've been anxious to sort of get involved, and then when it comes down to sort of the 11th hour, the attorney will say, okay, can you write me some character letters? And from the attorney, it all makes perfect sense. But what it receives as, or how it lands on families sometimes, could be pretty anxiety-ridden. Because, like, what do you write? You know, like, you've been, like, anxious to do something. They finally say, okay, you're in. You get on the field, and you're like, wait, which way do I go? Because we said this yesterday, no one's been to my loved one's been arrested school. Like there is no pre-education for that moment. And so what people do is their best, and they end up writing letters that say stuff like, he's a really nice guy. Please just give her a second chance. And it's these kind of generalizations that judges see all the time that doesn't necessarily like move the needle. And so that's not because there's a lack of will or intention, it's because there's a lack of kind of direction of what is effective. Because most of this stuff that happens in your vocation feels very counterintuitive to the rest of us. And so being able to do a social bio packet does two things. One is it allows the knowledge and intelligence of the family to be communicated to the defense team to then use in the most appropriate way. And like the medical information, that sort of thing. That sometimes is within a fingertips reach of the family, but it's pretty far away from a lawyer or investigator or social worker, that kind of thing. But then the second thing, which is significant to us, is it gives something tangible and actionable for a family to do that is going to be just sort of balled up in energy, not knowing where to place it. Then you say, oh, well, actually there is something you could do, and it turns out to be the thing that you want to do the most, which is tell the fuller story of your loved one. And it came from us being at a lot of sentencing hearings where we were literally just physically being with people, and when we'd walk back after the sentencing hearing, the most common refrain we'd hear from families was, you know, not just like, that judge sucks and, you know, I hate that prosecutor. You know, they'd say that stuff too, but they'd also say, I just wish they knew him like I knew him. That's what they say.
What effect do you see on the community? Because I agree, it has an impact on the family,
Yeah.
but also for a community, where somebody may be stripped away from the community, and now, you know, there's a void in the community.
Absolutely.
Usually what I see is that the community keeps chugging on, they just recognize the person's been locked up.
Yeah.
If you've got a situation where the community can actually be involved in somebody's defense,
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to what impact have you seen on those particular communities?
Yeah, it's an elastic thing. Again, like when I say family, sometimes I also kind of bleed into larger community in the framing. But it has the same application where community, if there's a knowing that there was something they could do, so it wasn't just, okay, so-and-so got locked up again, we're going to keep it moving, that they could talk about what that extraction means to them, and how they could stop it, they get involved. So I'm gonna show a video or two that is sort of that, like, and sometimes we're even like, actually, it's talking about St. Louis, one of the first, or one of the videos we did for, it was a death penalty case. When we were working with the attorney, the story that needed to be told wasn't actually the family story. That story had been told in the trial level. This was a little bit down the road. It was the story of the community generationally. And so people were anxious to be kind of the historians, to talk about, what had never really been talked about. So the community actually, yeah, absolutely, I think when engaged, wants to be involved.
And real quick, what
Yeah.
comes to my mind, which Raj will talk about, what we'll talk about, is then comes cases, the campaigns. So they'll get involved, you have this case, well, what else can I do? This could have changed, this could be different, and then you get into campaigns.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
How, can you explain how the very first act
Yeah.
that has the prosecutor and the look at,
Yeah.
what was that? How are you
Sure.
here? That's, this is more of how it is.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking you, how did you get this into consider?
Sure. That was on the public defenders, quite frankly. Like, I'd love to take credit for it, be like, I marched in there and I said, take off your robe, and but it was the public defender. And in a lot of there's two approaches I'd say happen. One is, and this, if the packets are hard to get in, the videos then would be sometimes harder. But I've seen public defenders take two approaches. One is they're cherry picking